Greetings! I'm your host, El Fucko. Want to hear a band that were kings at pissing people off? Well, look no further than the Mentors. A shock rock group based out of Seattle. They made a point in offending a lot of people, but they sure could rock while doing so. Enough stories in turbulent times have happened throughout the years that it could all finally be told in a documentary. The Mentors, Kings of Sleaze. Eldon Hoke, who the world would come to know as El Duce, teamed up with friends from school, Eric Carlson, also known as Sicky Wifebeater, and Steve Broy, also known as Dr. Heathen Scum. They played rock together, then the punk thing happened and they wanted to do more shocking stuff. Mentors were one of the many bands that came to by being bored with the status quo and what was considered safe rock and roll by that point. They wore black hoods, drank like fish, and sang songs about objectifying women and things surrounding that.
Suck it, fucking cook it, please. Suck, do you know what I mean? It's the only way.
Needless to say, if there were any buttons that could be pushed, they were pushed so many times that they got stuck, fell out, or called up their button parents to say, "Mommy, I told you I didn't want to go to button college to be a button. I've wasted my life and I hate you." Essentially, anal cunt before there was an anal cunt. Just about any derogatory term they could use to insult glam rockers, women, or basically anybody they didn't like, they weren't afraid to use. But they had fun with it too, often referencing how much pathetic drunken messes they were. Like Matt McCord of the Wild Dogs said,
El Duce had a real genius mind for lyrics that were self-effacing and making fun of himself rather than just trying to piss people off. He would offend people, but in a way that you kind of love the guy because it's that's funny.
Naturally, with them singing about such subject matter, they've had their share of protesters as well as bannings from clubs and countries. They even attracted the attention of the PMRC. The funny thing about that is the board had to read some of the Mentors' lyrics aloud to get their points across.
Bend up and smell my anal vapor. Your face is my toilet paper. On your face I leave a shit tower, golden showers. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my remarks, and I thank you.
Sorry, your time has expired.
Kinda reminds me of the story about Dismember's lyrics having to be read in court. You know, to be determined if they were obscene. Among the people invited to speak in this, we have Hunter Jackson, John Gallagher, Scott Weinrich, Brian Slagle, Blag the Ripper, Tom Hunting, and El Duce's mother, sister, and childhood friend. The band started with 3 members, but there have been a lot of people filling in and taking places of others over the years. Many of them have screen time, even if it's just for a little bit. What's even more interesting is how some members formed Mentors tribute bands specifically to try to get into the real Mentors. A lot of Mentors and El Duce stories are over the top and can be heard by people who've met them, as well as read in books. This documentary doesn't really go big into those crazy stories, though the one about playing for a 5-year-old's birthday party was pretty amazing.
When we heard that there was this really cool club, so we called up the owners. I said, well, you need to send us a demo tape. And we actually made a copy of Deep Purple live in Japan and said it was us. And so he goes, okay, you guys are booked. We had this girl that would dress all in kind of sexy clothes and lingerie and come out with a whip. It was a pizza joint rather than a rock club, and they were actually having a birthday party for a 5-year-old kid. And he's back at the soundboard, hey, you guys, stop.
They give us our $50 and told us to hit the highway.
It does talk about their lifestyles, the company they kept, the alcohol problems. Those dudes lived hard, and a lot of it wasn't just a stage thing. At one point, they were talking about El Duce going to rehab, and then coming right back out to get drunk again. What else is nice is bits and pieces of the fuck movie was included, and obviously some rare photos, newspaper clippings, and live footage. There's also the occasional animation to detail a scene, sorta like what Bad Brains Abandoned DC did. El Duce's claims of Courtney Love offering him 50 G's to kill Kurt Cobain had to be mentioned here. Kurt's death has been the subject of conspiracy theories and what-ifs over the years, so the movie does show El's participation in the Kurt and Courtney doc, investigating these theories. In it, he name-drops Alan Wrench, who he claims killed Kurt.
You did some deal with Courtney, right?
Yeah. She offered me 50 grand to whack Kurt Cobain. I know who whacked him. I told Alan, my friend, who I'll let the FBI catch him.
Alan was interviewed here because he was the last guy to have interacted with El. The meeting was ultimately to figure out why El would name drop him for everyone to see in a movie, but it went nowhere. He then dropped El off at a liquor store downtown, and later that night, El got hit by a train.
He enjoyed life so much. He was able to do what he wanted to do. That's most important. people can do what they want to do.
Going back to the Alan Wrench thing, apparently this was his first interview since the Kurt mess went down. Well, the interview goes fine up until this happens.
Do you feel guilty?
Why would I feel guilty?
For what happened to him? Since you were the last person to see him. The rumors about you being pissed Duce named you in the Kurt and Courtney movie.
Okay, here's what's up. We agreed there's not going to be any fucking Cobain shit in this.
I love that they just left that in there. Okay, first of all, the whole reason you're in this is to address the issue. Nobody here was accusing you of anything, and the question wasn't even directly about Kurt. You're in this because you were the last person to talk to Elle, and that was because he named you in the Kurt and Courtney documentary. This is your chance to clear the air a bunch of years later. Man, if he got that triggered over that, imagine how he feels when he sees somebody wear a Nirvana shirt down the street. This isn't the type of documentary where it delves specifically into the albums. Mentors had an assortment of demos, bootlegs, and other weird recordings, so I guess trying to explain their whole catalog would take too much screen time. On top of that, you already know what you're getting when you hear the Mentors anyway. Given that even the big albums like You Asked For It and Up the Dose are only mentioned briefly, it's not surprising that Elle's solo work isn't covered. Sure, the documentary is about the Mentors, but what about a small bit of time dedicated to Slave to Thy Master? The Outside albums with him and Dr. Heath and Scum aren't too far off from the Mentors because they were often in each other's projects. Actually, it was Dr. Heath and Scum who found the recordings for posthumous albums like God and El Duce's Triple Xmas. Yeah, I know what some of you are thinking. Oh, but the Mentors promote rape and violence against women and they're so sexist and objectifying, how horrible! Okay, here's what's up. We agreed there wasn't gonna be any fucking offended people in this. Okay, fine. For those who need this explained, I'll just give a couple pointers. 1. The genre is shock rock. Why do you think it's called that? Because the bands go into it knowing they're going to get a rise out of you if they're good at it. The goal is to antagonize anyone. 2. Look at this. There's a woman in the band at one point. Even though she said she was shocked by the lyrics, she says she was shocked in a good way and it was all fun and games.
It's all part of the shtick.
3. Speaking of women, a woman directed this movie. Clearly she felt safe enough around these guys to film them for a few years and even go on tour with them. 4. Notice how there are plenty of real women in the music videos, in the audience, on the album covers, and backstage with them. I hate to be the real-lifer guy, but it doesn't look like any of these women have guns held to their heads being told, "Be around us." 5. El Duce's sister even said,
"Since he was my brother, I knew he was all about shock. He would say anything that would ruffle your feathers. Because I knew my brother, I knew he was no rapist, and he was no wife beater, and he was none of these things."
For those already in on the joke, sorry I had to spell it all out, but you know how it is. A lot of people like to complain about everything. I learned plenty of things about the band by watching this. People will remember the Mentors for El Duce, but I definitely appreciate that it covered what the band did after his death. Of course, the Mentor story is much bigger than what can be put into film. Lots of legends and stories from fans detailing the hell-raising these guys did can be found in books and online forums. My verdict is that the Mentors Kings of Sleaze condensed their history into something visually enjoyable without overstaying its welcome. On a final note, I'd like to push a few buttons myself. You know how in the beginning of the movie they show El Duce's mother waiting by a train? Perhaps it's a bit of foreshadowing? Then minutes later they talk about how his father owned a big model train set. Maybe it's an image coming full circle from his childhood to being hit by a train in real life in adulthood. I bet his favorite Ozzy Osbourne song was Crazy Train. He would have loved train robbing in Red Dead Redemption. He had a trained ear for rock music. Okay, I'm done. See ya.